Hello, I'm William Gallagher, and this is the 58 Keys Script Club. It's like a book club, but it's about scripts. Yeah. You could, as ever, listen to me enthuse, and I'd really like that. Of course I would. Or, because I'd just be on my own. Or you could just go read the scripts. Link in the description. Though this time, maybe bring some biscuits. Because, well, I mean, as ever, I kind of want to ultimately focus on one script. It's one of a set of 176. I've read them all. I've read them all several times, but I'm surprised that I did. I'm surprised I read them at all. Anyway, glad that I did, actually. I should say that right from the top. I should also say the series I want to enthuse at you about is Star Trek Deep Space Nine. And yeah, back up a second. This was the next Star Trek show after Star Trek The Next Generation. I liked watching The Next Generation. So a long time ago now, when Paramount released every book and tie-in they could, when they reached the bottom of the barrel in terms of what the hell can we got left to sell, they brought out the scripts to The Next Generation, and I bought them. I bought the lot. I bought them immediately. They're actually 178 scripts. You see me looking around now, I'm trying to see where they is. They're 178, and they came out originally on a CD-ROM that I have still got somewhere. I can't play it now, but actually couldn't bear playing it then either, because this was one of those times when a publisher optimistically brought out something because thought, well, somebody will buy it, but didn't really think nobody's going to read 178 scripts. I mean, come on, be reasonable. You can see that logic there. So let's start it up a bit. They thought the scripts were packed alongside incredibly low resolution trailers for each episode, and they were shown in a faux Star Trek computer interface, the LCARS thing, if you know that. Short version, you could read about a quarter of a page of script before you had to do something. I can't remember. Click somewhere, probably scroll somewhere, whatever, something like that. But all of those scripts were actually just text files knocking around somewhere on that CD-ROM. And once you knew that, once you figure out where they were, well, you just took them all and you read them in a word processor. You skipped all of that LCARS nonsense. Today, you can find every one of these scripts online for The Next Generation, and they look to me, actually, like they were taken from the CD, just like I did all that time ago. It wasn't me, was it? Anyway, so I had them all. I read all of the Star Trek The Next Generation scripts, and one reason that I'm surprised I went on to do the same with Deep Space Nine is that The Next Generation scripts are oddly dull. Some are better than others. Of course, actually many of them are better than others, but there was kind of this overall thing that the same issue kept stopping me enjoying them. It felt like they're not stories, they're puzzles. Where will the Enterprise go this week, and how will this group of perfect Starfleet officers solve whatever problem there, sort out a civilization, that kind of thing, every week, over and over. And that thing there, I just threw in about perfect officers. I wasn't making that up. That's like fact. It was written into the show's format that the characters were pretty much perfect. Certainly, none of them could have a beef with anybody else. None of them could have any problem at all with any other main character. Because, of course, in the future, humanity has progressed beyond petty jealousies and have they bollocks. I got to the end of The Next Generation. And I had Deep Space. Did I buy them at the same time? I don't know, but I had them and I still hesitated because I kind of took it for granted it was more of the same, isn't it? It's still Star Trek. I had watched the pilot episode to Deep Space Nine. In fact, reviewing it was my first, one of my few major newspaper articles, and I hadn't liked it. So I didn't carry on watching. Why would you? But so here we are. There's a show I didn't know. Usually that's a good thing, but I did know its pilot episode and I didn't like it, and I had just read getting on for 200 scripts that were surely just like it. I think it's a small miracle that I read any Deep Space scripts, but thank goodness for small miracles. Where The Next Generation, I would argue, is a set of 178 puzzles, I said, wasn't it? Puzzles to be sorted out. Plus, if you'd watched the show, you'd seen the episode, you knew what the answer was. There was no suspense left in the scripts. Deep Space Nine's 176 scripts. They're one long novel. Lots to say, but let's go with this first. it became immediately obvious to me reading this that this Star Trek series had found a way around that nonsense of Starfleet officers always being nice to each other. I mean, they still are. The show didn't break its own Star Trek rules. If you are a Starfleet officer in Star Trek, you're a good guy, and everyone likes you. But the show is full, Deep Space is full of characters who are not Starfleet. These are not minor characters, they're in major roles, they're crucial to the show, and they are not bound by this ridiculous rule. So we get these non-Starfleet characters arguing with each other, and just gorgeously they argue with the Starfleet gang as well. It is a brilliant solution. I mean, myself, I'd have just said sod it about this rule and carried on. Get everybody fighting, why not? And actually, to be fair, the Next Generation did once have Lieutenant Commander Shelby, a sort of temporary 1 or 2 episode character, who she was like sand in an oyster. She was great, but 2 episodes. Otherwise, everyone nicey. What can you do? You can apparently shake up the entire format while sticking exactly to the format. I mean, this is so cleverly done. And then that thing for me, that thing of puzzle after puzzle, the Enterprise going to a new planet each week. Well, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, for the very most part, was set on a space station. And its characters ain't going anywhere, really. And you heard the tone, that was part of the issue. You have problems, and if you got a problem this week, well, it's still there next week. You don't get to just fly away to another civilization. You have to deal with the issues, and you have to keep dealing with them, and then deal with the consequences of you dealing with the issues. Plus, instead of the shiny USS Enterprise, which is very nice, Deep Space Nine is a hovel of a space station, and it was built in a kind of alien brutalist style to be not a habitable thing, just a mining operation. So it's now been badly adapted to anything else. It's literally uncomfortable for the characters. It is great. Every bit of this format scrapes up against every other bit. Deep Space, it's pregnant with the possibility of drama. And while there are a few, maybe even quite a few dud episodes, maybe naff, for the greater part, it exceeds its potential. And okay, this is Star Trek, so you still know that the heroes are going to win through at the end, but there are times when you actually doubt it, and there are times when you should, because they don't, not always. And I wouldn't know any of this if it weren't for the scripts. I mean, well, that sounds obvious, doesn't it really? I mean, of course, the scripts came first, but I mean, they came first for me. I wouldn't have watched the show beyond that pilot if I hadn't read these scripts. Weird thing, Deep Space Nine, now it has a much better reputation now. In fact, I think it's better than the Next Generation, its reputation. And the cast and the crew are regularly being seen saying, well, we wish people had paid it this attention when it was actually on. Quite reasonable there. I just told you that I had all of its scripts, but okay, so the show was over, the scripts were published, but I'm in the UK, and the show here was months behind the original US air dates. So way back then, late 90s, I'm reading this stuff completely without seeing anything bar the pilot, and I'm racing through the scripts. I'm gobbling them up faster and faster just to find out what happens next. I'm so into this. When I come to about halfway through the 7th and the final season, I've caught up to where BBC Two here in the UK was airing Star Trek Deep Space Nine. So I decided to stop reading the scripts for a while. I mean, I stopped reading Deep Space scripts. I read others. Obviously, I carried on reading scripts. How can you not? But I watched the last 10 episodes, something like that. At that particular time, I was writing for BBC CFAX in BBC Television Centre in London, and all the desks there in that newsroom, well, they had all sorts of monitors on them. Plus, on those nights, I would be working the late shift there, so I would actually take a kind of lunch break early evening to watch Deep Space Nine. And weirdly, I can still remember certain moments sitting there watching in that newsroom all alone in TVC or later in White City, the next BBC building along. And then, when it was finished, I read the last of the Deep Space scripts. Great. The end. Except, there are 176 Deep Space Nine scripts, and I can tell you for certain that I've read all of them. at least 4 times. Well, actually, I tell you what, most recently, a couple of years ago. Now, I was on holiday, I was on a ship, and I was flicking channels, sea day. I caught the last 20 minutes of a particularly good episode. I couldn't stream the start, I couldn't get to my own copies wherever they are here, but I could download the script again. So I did, and I read it. And then I read the next one, and the next, and I got all the way to the end, and then I started back at the beginning. Truly, they are that good. I read. I'm not overselling this, am I? If you don't know the show at all, right, well then I would like to suggest that you start reading, or actually just start watching from the 2nd season onwards. I told you that I didn't like the pilot. Well, after having read all of these and watching, I went back, gingerly watched the pilot again, wondering, had I been just wrong? Yeah, no. The pilot is weirdly poorly acted at times. It's very strange. But as happens, it's better on the page than on the screen, for one thing. But still, throughout the 1st season, I think the show maybe struggles a bit. It struggles with being both a regular Star Trek and deliberately, consciously not regular Star Trek. But by season 2, you're off to the races. So definitely read from there to the end, and then read the 1st season. It has great moments. I'm not knocking it, but... speaking of but, usually I like to enthuse at you about one specific script. Out of 176 of them, I would like to suggest that if you read none of the rest, read In the Pale Moonlight, story by Peter Allen Fields, teleplay by Michael Taylor. It's from the 6th season. I was getting on towards the end of the 6th season, really. So there's quite a bit of backstory there. And yet I think it still works on its own. I think so. And maybe because, well, in part because it's an unusual structure. It's structured as a personal diary. I mean, you know how Star Trek has Captain's Log and all that stuff. It's one of those. But instead of exposition, the Enterprise is en route to Ceti Theta 9. Yeah. This one is a confession. And that thing I said of the heroes not always winning through, I don't want to spoil anything. There's a particular moment in this script where I suspect every other US TV drama of its day, the early 1990s, including The Next Generation, they would have had the heroes pull off a thing. They would win because of how clever they've been. I'm not going to say that this is an episode where the heroes lose, because that would definitely spoil it, really. But I will say that what it does that I admire hugely, what I enjoy, relish, is it sets up a situation where losing is catastrophic and winning isn't an awful great deal better. That's Star Trek Deep Space Nine In the Pale Moonlight. Link to that and to all of the Deep Space Nine script. Yeah, all right, okay, go on then. And also all of the Next Generation ones, up to you, in the description. But for now, thanks for watching. Take care of yourself, eh? Write more, but we're writers. We need to write more, you and me both. It's important. And I'll see you soon.